Well, it's time to bring in the man of the hour is an understatement of the man of, I don't know, the last 15 years, the unofficial face of Gonzaga basketball, certainly the voice. It is the one and only Greg Heister. Sir, thank you so much for joining us.
It's nice to be here, guys.
At long last, we have.
The word "sir," though, to be honest.
Sorry, force of habit, I think.
Yeah, it's good to be with a bunch of Zags.
We are certainly that, if for better or worse. Let's start with an easy one. You're the coach for a day. What do you do to ease the troubled minds of Gonzaga fans? Start right off with the easy ones.
That's an absolute easy one. I'm still very bullish on the Zags this year. I really am. We all see the deficiencies, but I mean, these college basketball seasons are a process. I mean, if you go back to last year at this time, I don't think anybody was talking about Kansas as a Final Four team. They ended up winning it all, right? So I think I would start with that perspective. The other thing is that you've got to look at what Gonzaga has done this year at their very best. They beat some of the best teams in the country. And so that they have the ability to put it all together. And we all have known, we've all known that the West Coast Conference is not the same West Coast Conference of 20 years ago. And I think there's this feeling out there that the Zags are a little vulnerable. So this was their chance. And so, from opening tip with all these West Coast Conference games, it's going to be game on. And they're going to be fired up and play with no fear. And, I think if anything, the Zags just haven't handled that intensity to start a game. But there's no great teams in college basketball this year. I would not be surprised if this team makes a long run in the NCAA tournament. You got to remember it's led by a Hall of Fame coach. They've got arguably the top 5 player in the country, and you've got these young guards that are getting better every game. So, don't feel bad about anything, man.
Hey, that worked. I feel great now.
Yes. No,
so much better.
You got me back on.
Hey,
so hold on.
Tip your cap to Loyola Marymount. That's a heck of a win, and they made shots down the stretch.
They sure did. Yeah. I got a question though. I heard you say that the WCC is not the same as it used to be. You gave a little tip of the cap to the WCC, but on the telecast, you're always ribbing Dan. You and Richard give him hell for sticking up. What's the deal? Are you pro WCC or not, Greg?
Yeah. Well. Let me. I think that the top end is a little tougher. But when you go top to bottom, I'm not sure that it's tougher. But I also, oh God, I'm going to kick myself. Just so Dickau doesn't see this, we'll be all right. The other thing too is that the Pac-12's been down. It wasn't that long ago, 6-7 teams out of the Pac-12 in the tournament. They'll be lucky they get 3. So when you compare that to what's happening in the West Coast Conference, you kind of like, maybe the West Coast Conference is better. There have always been great players in the West Coast Conference, right? And I think that was always my point to Dan, was not that it's so much better today. He was kind of underplaying how good it was in the past. I go back to players like, Koki Roshin at Portland and Pooh Jeter. Remember that?
I remember.
That duo totally.
It was legit to go and beat that team. And Daniel Kickert and those teams at St. Mary's. There have been good ones. And then, you go back to those teams at Loyola Marymount. Like they were the school that had all of those Australians at first. In the
they did.
2000s, Matthew Knight and players like that. So, and how do I leave out Pepperdine? Those Pepperdine teams
right.
were loaded.
That
was when
we talk
when
about
we
that.
That was our.
Yes.
That was the first tenting experience we ever had. Was like, we gotta camp out to go see the Pepperdine game. That was the big game.
Adam, all 3 of us were there when the first time we did that was back in the field house before the MAC ever existed.
Yeah, the Martin Center.
Paul Westfall, Jimmy Miggins was on. Like there were some.
Glenn McGowan.
Yeah, Glenn was
Montgomery.
A problem.
Yeah.
So it's always been good. It's always been good.
Do you look at this?
Don't let Dan see this.
So sometimes I got to compliment you and Dan and Richard because you guys your chemistry is great. It's always great to watch the telecast, not only because it's great to watch the game, but you have a really entertaining. So how much of the stuff when you're teasing Dan about his sticking up for the WCC, it almost seems to me like it's shtick that you're doing it.
No,
doing it to get his goat to bug him because you're like buddies ribbing each other. How much shtick is on the air? Just because you can get Richard for this, or you can get Dan for that, and then he can get you for this. Like there's a lot of that going on. It's great.
Yeah, and I don't know if shtick is the right word. I like to have fun on television. It's
right.
TV, right? And so if we're not having fun, man, it's just kind of boring because maybe not this year, but oftentimes we're getting the Zag games where they win by 40. So calling the buckets and stuff is not all. I would invite everybody to come to our pre-meeting prior to the game where we're there at the media room and listen to us jaw at each other in there. And I think it just kind of spills over to the game. We have very colorful debates, if you will, and I'm always kind of the one that's defending myself because obviously, Dan's a first-team All-American, played all those years in the NBA. Richard is a huge fan of the NBA and knows a lot about basketball, and I'm the silly play-by-play guy that's trying to get his point across. So, but we jab each other on the air a lot, and it's total love. I've been working with those two guys now for a long time, and I think the world of them. I think the world of them both as humans. They're both just tremendous people, and
well said.
Yeah, and they're fun to play. They're fun to work with, Dan's legit.
The
it means when there's an extra reason to watch when GU's up 30, you don't want to turn the telecast off because now we start to listen to you guys instead of really watching the game.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that because honestly, you're either in that camp or you're hateful of us because they don't want us off the topic. And I've called games with Bill Walton before, and he's never on the topic. Like it could be a 3-point game with 38 seconds left, and he's talking about some wilderness area or somewhere, upstate.
That's amazing.
Somewhere. Yeah, it's crazy, and
we need some Bill Walton stories.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we get off target a little bit with during these Zag games, and not everybody views that as fun, but we do.
Is that how do you because on Gonzaga games it kind of tends to be you who leads people astray, so to speak, whether it's talking about old Jack Lambert and old Steelers players or just kind of giving it to Dan. But when you're paired with Walton, I don't think there's a human alive who would lead astray more than Walton.
Right.
So how do you navigate going back and forth between kind of roles, so to speak?
Yeah, it's I've always kind of viewed my job as trying to provoke things, right? Whether it's thought, whether it's humor, whether it's some strategy, provoke them into engaging and competing, right? And so some of that stuff that happens during the broadcast, I think, is the three of us competing in a way with one another. It's never personal. It's funny because over these years, I'll get hit by people I don't even know will hit me up in like Facebook Messenger or on Twitter. They'll be like, Heister, you're terrible. Like, be nicer to Dan. And I always laugh at that because like this guy, he was a first-team All-American and played 6 or 7 years in the NBA. Like, he's a pretty tough guy.
He's a tough guy.
Right.
But then, like the next one, it'll be the same night, and they're talking about the same moment, and they'll be writing Dan saying, "Dan, be nicer." And so it's not even perceived the same sometimes.
Right.
It's really it's been a study in psychology, frankly, over these years to try to figure out where the line lives, right?
Yeah.
Like, because we don't want to go over the line too much. We're not in the business of making people unhappy. We want people to listen and to watch, and not everybody's in favor of that. But it's been a great year this year because we do have a lot of close games to call. So they've been fun to call, and big buckets and dudes just making plays. Like it's when this job is at at its very best. Yeah. I hope that answered the question.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, how do you process the LMU loss as a, that happens and kind of the world caves in and on Gonzaga fandom, obviously a little bit of overreaction theater, but,
Yeah.
This was obviously unexpected, but Gonzaga's been playing with fire a little bit. How do you process this as someone who's in the program, not in the program, sort of kind of on the inside / outside at the same time?
Well, I process it this way. Streaks are meant to end. They're always painful when they do, but it was going to end. Like it was going to end. And we'll wait and see what comes of this. People can argue, well, they went to Pacific and it was close. If you go back to Adam Morrison's final year at Gonzaga, all of those games were close. They all went down to the last possession or two. So it's not like we haven't seen this before. But to put LMU in perspective, I mean, the Zags have been kicking there for a long time, right? I mean, they hadn't won in Spokane since 1991. Think about that. That's what, a year or two after Hank Gathers and Bo Kimball. So it's been a long time for them. And they made the plays down the stretch, and you got to credit. And Gonzaga, again, at the end, had a chance to win it, and just didn't. Playing with fire, probably needed to kind of focus in better defensively earlier in that game. But, man, like, this is a long season. And, I also watched Kansas lose 3 in a row. I also, when you look at Duke right now, Duke is not even in the top 25.
No.
Yeah, they've looked pretty bad.
Michigan State got off to a tough start. They're playing better now.
Kentucky.
Yeah,
imploding, maybe improving
the
a little
list is
bit.
long. UCLA got throttled the other day against Arizona. Arizona has bad losses.
Mm-hmm. Houston just lost to
Washington
Temple.
State, Oregon.
Temple
Beat Houston, right? So this is the crazy, zany world. And so I just don't. In fact, I always get hit in public. I was at the game tonight, and there was a couple that came up to me. I was having the same discussion with them, like, yeah, so they lost to Loyola Marymount. I mean, they're going to lose another one.
Yeah, probably the St. Mary's.
They're not going to win them all. Like, they're just not going to win them all. And so, but I trust in this thing. We've been here before. It's just that it's been so good over the last 2, 3, 4 years.
Right.
The roster has 2 or 3 NBA guys on it, and it's been Final Four or bust. And I think this team was given a disservice at the beginning of the year when it was ranked number 2 to start.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that good. It wasn't at the start, obviously, but I think they're totally a top 10 team, and I'm still bullish on a long run. I mean, why wouldn't it be?
I mean, if things
You're
are
doing
firing
a great
on
job
all,
reminding everyone that this sport is all about getting hot in March. So everyone, and including me, I'm guilty of freaking out in January.
Yeah.
Just like all other fans. I mean, sports is anything but rational. But thank you for reminding everyone. It's about how you're playing in March. You don't know how this season's going to play out yet. Get hot in March. All right, sorry, Adam, I interrupted you.
And honestly, I just think too, our perspectives get warped a little bit. Like, I realize the last few years has been all about getting to the Final Four and winning a championship, but not every year is going to be like that. Like, do you remember the year that Ronny Turioff, his senior year, we got knocked out of the NCAA tournament, the second game of that first week, and against Texas Tech and Bobby Knight. And at halftime, I'd already booked my flights to the next round, thinking the Zags were up by 10 points or something at half, and I'm like, there's no way they're going to lose this. And then Bobby Knight and that team came back. Long story short, I think that was the first time in 16 years that Bob Knight had gotten back to the Sweet 16.
Wow.
Yeah,
right?
That's some perspective is really important.
Yeah, it's
important
in this time.
Because the NCAA tournament is like going to Vegas and playing craps. Like, you can lose everything or you can hit it big, and you just on any given day. And it's just like people who sit here and say, well, Gonzaga is going to do this in the NCAA tournament. I can't make that determination until I see the bracket.
Yeah.
The matchups, right? The matchups mean everything in that tournament. So we'll wait and see what seed. I think Joe Lunardi, last time I checked, still has Gonzaga as a 3rd seed in the NCAA tournament. So what the heck is wrong with that? And we'll see what the teams are and how they match up. I think I got one of these cool mics too.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah, I should have been using it. Does that change the quality of the audio at all? I don't know.
It may. It's hard to know.
Maybe a little bit.
Okay. All right, good. Maybe not. Maybe I'm on the mic.
We have some software that improves everything in the back end.
Oh,
it's kind of
magic software.
It's kind of cool. Love
yeah,
software.
I like that software. Yeah.
This is not our normal voice at all.
What? Yeah, I sound way better on this one. Greg, I'm going to change the subject a little bit. I wanted to ask you a little bit about your well-documented longtime friendship with Coach Few.
Yeah.
This is something that let me know if obviously you guys are good buddies. Is there anything you could point to that is a quality of his? If you had to pick one quality of his that has allowed him to have the success he's had over the last 20 years, what do you think that is?
Well, he stayed the course. You know what I mean? I think more than anything, he stayed the course. I mean, if you look back, certainly in my lifetime, I mean, coaches are running from happiness every year.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're literally sprinting away from it because they think it's greener somewhere else. And he had tremendous perspective from day one where, he thought he could do it here. And he was going to go out and prove to everybody that he could do it here. And he's done it here. This is unprecedented. These 20 years now is unprecedented in the history of college basketball. I don't care whether they end up winning a championship or not. Like, it's unprecedented. And the four of us and all of the Zagville out there, like, we've been front row for this time in history. And I think that we should all be grateful for that and not find fault in a tough loss or whatever. But back to Coach Few, I just think that he stayed the course. I've been in a fishing boat with him when the phone has rang, and some schools offering him a ton of money to leave, and he doesn't. He's never, like, of all, a lot of the jobs that he's been offered have been documented out there, but it's not nearly the number that he's been offered. So I just think that he's been extremely loyal. And I think that these kids see that. I think that the university sees that. And I hope this community sees this. He's been very loyal to us as a fan base, as a lover of Gonzaga basketball and everything that this program has stood for. I find him horribly unique in this day and age when these coaches run from happiness. He identified happiness early on, and quality of life means everything for him. And he's still here. He's still here. And trust me, the offers are still coming.
Wow.
That astounds me. I can't believe people still think they can pull more.
In the middle of the season, the offers are still.
Last year,
coming.
when Maryland's coach left, I forget who left, but I remember people on Twitter were talking. Maryland fans were saying, "Go call Few."
Just go get Few.
Just
go
go
simple
get
as that. Just throw him some money.
That was Mark Turgeon, and again,
That's right.
Yeah, he's good friends with Coach Few, and I guarantee you they sniffed.
It seems like he's good friends with a lot of coaches.
Yeah. Who does he hate?
Yeah.
Who's
He's good friends with people we can't stand.
I think, and I don't want to disappoint you guys, but I think at one time there was a pretty good rivalry with he and Randy Bennett at St. Mary's. But I think they even get along these days. Like, I think yes, there's great respect between the two.
Boo!
Adam, cut this part.
I don't want to hear about. I don't want to hear about this.
We're not.
Can't admit that.
We have mean words for Randy Bennett on this show, but that's fine.
Well, without, I guess, betraying confidence, we don't want to over ask. But what is something about Coach Few that the public doesn't know? You hear the stories, for example, of like Belichick. You see the press conferences and him just being a gruff, unlikable person, and then you hear players say he's got the greatest sense of humor in the world. Like, what is there something like that? Like, a trait about Few that we would be surprised to know he has?
Man, I'm getting all these crazy pop-ups. There's Amazon popping up in this. What the heck's going on? That's a really good question, because I kind of see him like he's pretty transparent, you know. If you've dealt with him in the media and you see him on television, you see those interviews, like he's pretty genuine. He's pretty authentic, extremely competitive. Like, like I can tell you stories of being fishing with him, and like there was one time we were up on the Knack, and he was fishing downriver with me, and I swing a fly out, and it comes in, and I bang this big fish near his feet, and it ruffled. He wasn't too happy about it. I think I go back in there, and I swing another one, and another big fish eats me right at his feet, and I go over and sit down on the bank, and he starts screaming at me, like, just, what are you doing, Heister? Like, and I'm like, it's like, Coach, I just caught two of the greatest fish in my life. I don't need to catch a third. And he's like, the heck with that. You should get out here till you catch 10 of them, right?
Okay.
He's a very competitive guy, but extreme. And I'm probably, Chris, I'm probably not giving you the answer that you're because he is pretty genuine and loyal, and blast to hang out with, and can be surly at times, like we can all be, and but like he can take a ribbing good, and he and I have had some knockdown drag out discussions over the years, some good ones, and so, but it's always friendly, and like we've always he's a great guy. He's been I hope he doesn't watch this stuff, but
I can't fathom he knows who we are.
Yeah, I don't think Mark Few has any idea that we even exist.
Don't worry about that.
He's a tremendous example. I mean, in many ways, of being a father, a husband. He's a very spiritual guy, and so he's connected to all that. He's committed to his family, and listen, he's always done it the right way, or at least attempted and tried to do this the right way. And he's not sacrificed a lot, his integrity in this. Like, he doesn't recruit knuckleheads. Like, he just doesn't recruit knuckleheads. And, not that stuff can't happen. Everything can happen, right? These are 20-year-old kids.
Sure.
But they've all, like, literally, they've all been, like, a blast to deal with. Good people. And, like, Zach Norvell's back working around the team, and I interviewed him the other day, and man, I could see that guy being a coach easily, going into a living room and charming some family, and that, like, just solid people. Like, they're all just solid people, and that's a credit to this coaching staff over the years. It's not just the ones that are there now; it's the ones that have been here that help build the legacy and this tradition that we've enjoyed.
That's great. I love hearing stuff like that. If you guys don't mind, I want to pivot a little bit away from basketball.
Let's pivot.
So Greg, I would love to hear. So you've been covering. You cover the Iditarod and have for years, right? And you're out in the thick of it with those sleds, right? I would love to hear an Iditarod story. What's the coldest it's ever been for you? Because I know it can get like wind chill -50, -70. I've read. I mean, do you have any crazy Iditarod stories?
Oh gosh. Well, there's so many, guys. My very first Iditarod was 1992, and I don't deal in wind chill. But I got to a place called Ruby, Alaska, and it's on the Yukon River, and it was 63 below zero.
Wait, without the chill.
Without the wind chill, it's just straight cold.
It doesn't matter at that point.
Yeah, right.
Sleeping in a tent, the whole way. And I don't know if it had got warmer than 40 below that whole race. But 2 or 3 years ago, one of the COVID years, we were, because we weren't allowed to go into the communities out there at all on the trail because of COVID. So we were literally in tents the whole way.
Wow.
And they put these propane heaters in for us to keep us warm so we can do our work. And propane freezes at like 35 below.
Huh.
And those nights it was getting better than 60 below zero. So,
Oh my word.
yeah, so we've been in cold and blizzards, like a lot of epic blizzards. And, I have a crew of about 15 people. I hire them and we go out and cover the race, and snow machines and wheel skewed airplanes, helicopter once in a while. And we bring the coverage of the race to the fan base, around the world. So it's been cool. And my first race was 92. I haven't done it every year. I think I missed like 97 to early 2000 something. So, but it's over 25 Itidorods now.
Wow.
No.
Yeah.
What is it about that draws you to it? Or what is
Oh, Chris, like if somebody said, here's, media pass to the Super Bowl or the World Series or the Final Four, it just doesn't, they don't compare. This is the greatest sporting event in the world.
Wow.
And the people, the people that have committed their lives to that lifestyle, oftentimes they're highly educated, extremely articulate, the hardest working people you've ever been around, and yet they've committed their lives to lifestyle and not richness or wealth, right? If they all worked in the business world, they'd be extremely wealthy. So the people have always attracted me to it. And then I'm a landscape guy, right? Now you have dog teams going across the Arctic and across the entire state of Alaska, over the Alaska Range, the Bering Sea, the Yukon River and the Bering Sea are just amazing places in the winter. Cold and windy, and just to see these people do that and to tell the stories, sleep deprivation, in 10 days of race, they'll get 10 hours of sleep.
Wow.
The dogs will run 140, 150 miles a day, and they'll eat 10,000 calories, and they'll whistle them up and they'll march right back out, and off they go. So it's just a tremendous, like in my early days of becoming a storyteller, it's really where I cut teeth on developing those skills. So I've always felt that I owe it, but it's a epically beautiful experience. It really is.
It sounds like you could write a book with some about your experiences covering that race.
Well, I produce a 2 to 2.5 hour documentary after every one of them.
I did read that, yeah.
Yeah. So over these years, I've done a lot of writing about the race, and have done, I don't know how many, probably thousands of hours of interviews now for that thing. And it started in 1973. So, my experience started in 92. So we just had our 50th year. This is the 51st race.
There you go. Yeah.
So it's been great. It's been.
It's run in March, right?
Yeah, first Saturday in March.
And it goes a few weeks, for a month.
The winner will do it in 19 days.
19 days.
Yeah, there'll be teams out on the trail for 15 days now. But in 1973, when it started, the winner took 21 days, and there were probably teams out there for 35.
Wow.
So my early days of the race. Yeah, my early days of the race, I think there were probably 12-day winners, and then probably 20 days you'd have people out on the trail.
There you go.
Yeah.
That just sounds.
It's fascinating.
It's incomprehensible, frankly.
Well, it is kind of incomprehensible, to be honest with you. Because you're flying around on little airplanes, and I missed the month of March, right? So I haven't been to the early rounds of an NC2A tournament in a long time. But when we get to Nome, we're usually right about the time, maybe the tournament is still going. So I get to watch some of the games on television. And then when I get done in Nome, oftentimes it's straight to the Sweet 16 game.
That works out nice.
Right, yeah.
Do the people of Alaska think you're crazy for yelling and screaming at the TV when or are you able to maintain impartiality?
Yeah, honestly, so like Jordan Caskey works. Do you guys know?
I remember Jordan.
Yeah, so Jordan produces like the Mark Few show, and like tremendously talented guy. He works on the race with me, so that's one Zag, and then like there's a few others that are fans, and then there's a few guys from Seattle that are on the crew that know about all of it. So, yeah.
They know what they're signing up for.
Totally.
Or when you're watching a game as a fan, are you an animated game watcher?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, it's this has been a passionate thing for all of us. Like, guys, you know, I don't know where you all grew up, but you know, when I first moved to Spokane, you know, and this is the other thing that I try to tell people, you know, to give them a little perspective on all of this stuff. When I first moved to Spokane in 1998 or 7 or something like that, like the Inland Northwest was a pretty bleak place in winter. There weren't restaurants downtown. There weren't hangouts downtown. There was nothing to be excited about. Like, you're just praying and waiting for spring to come. Gonzaga changed all that. Like, this is a lively place now in the wintertime. We have a lot to look forward to get excited about, and to find passions in. And it's all because of that basketball program. So, yeah, it's Spokane's a better place today because of it. And I don't even mean financially, right? Like, the economic impacts. Who knows? Somebody a lot smarter than I can figure that out. I'm just talking about getting out of bed in the morning and with a smile on your face and feeling good about the day because we got a Zag game tonight.
Yeah, it's hard for people who haven't spent a long time in the area to kind of grasp how much Gonzaga means to the community.
Totally, Chris, and how all that's changed, right? And like you guys probably saw the very end of the ability to go to the old kennel and walk in and get a ticket.
We didn't even have tickets. We literally
just flash the ID. Yeah,
like literally didn't have tickets.
Yeah, so you guys have tremendous perspective. You've seen all of this change, and so when people get worried about the skies falling, I'm like, no. Like,
I've seen it without a sky before.
The sky was laying on us, in the late '90s before all this started. So.
How did you? Is it as forgive the phrasing, but is it as kind of dumb lucky as KHQ getting the contract as to how you started announcing the games, or how did you kind of get?
Yeah, so that's weird. So I got into So long story short, I got into television all those years ago. My dream was to be Kurt Gowdy, and I don't know if you guys know what Kurt Gowdy was.
Absolutely.
Right? He was the original host of the American Sportsman, which was television's real first outdoor show, and then he was one of our great Hall of Fame sportscasters. So that's really who I tried to emulate. That's what I wanted to be. So I got to Spokane, and I did an outdoor series here called The Sporting Life, it was called. And I did that, and I had already I'd already worked in Alaska, so I came down. I was doing a bunch of outdoor stuff down there. Got hired by KHQ. And then the radio deal, like that first season I did radio, and there were 15 or 20 games, I forget, that were simulcasted on television that I did the simulcast for. So it was kind of and I was the sports director at KHQ, and Coach Few and I got to know each other a little bit, and fishing and stuff. So it all kind of, it's almost like it was divine intervention. It all kind of fell in place. I was living my dream. I turned down so many different opportunities in television in those early years to go chase different stuff, including, stuff at ESPN and stuff, because I wanted to do play-by-play. And so that's kind of how it happened.
You didn't run from happiness.
I did. No, true. Absolutely.
Love it.
Like,
Nicely done.
I'm not a big city guy. Like you, the people who know me well will back that up. I don't find anything redeeming about large cities. So
I won't tell you where I'm broadcasting from then.
Yeah, I won't say where
yeah, and so they're nice places to visit, and then they're equally as nice to get them in the rearview mirror. And like, I'm headed out Thursday morning to cover a sled dog race in Wyoming out of Jackson Hole, so I'll be there for a week. So I'm looking forward to that. So it's funny, this crazy life. There's all these choices and directions to go, and I don't really believe in regrets and any of this stuff. You just make your decision and you go with it. The wind will blow you where you're supposed to go, and every door that opens will be different. And you just got to kind of embrace it and make the most of it. So doing the Gonzaga games, opened up the door. I've done a bunch of games for ESPN, and do a ton of stuff now for Pac-12 Network today,
Mhm.
which is kind of, perfect for me because I'm doing baseball, football, basketball, men's and women's, some soccer, some volleyball. It's been a spectacular deal. So,
Awesome.
yeah.
Could you have ever? When did you? I don't say could you ever. When did you envision Gonzaga would turn into? For the podcast, I'm just sort of gesturing at everything, like what it is now. Like when did you realize it was that? I guess.
I'll be absolutely honest. I mean, every year, so when Dan left, I'm like, okay, well, and then it was like, okay, well, Adam left. Oh, well, okay, well, and like you just kept waiting for this thing to hit a ceiling, right? Or maybe to take a step back, or the so-called rebuild. And it just never happened. It just never, ever happened. I don't even believe in him at Gonzaga anymore. He's been able to reload this thing every year. I mean, and so, but obviously, Chris, this thing, 3 or 4 years ago, hit a different level. It used to bother me when people would say, well, Coach Few and Gonzaga can't win the big one, right? Because they hadn't been to a Final Four. When you really go back and look at all those first 15 whatever teams, how many of them truly had the firepower to get to a Final Four?
Yeah.
We know now what it takes to get to the Final Four. None of those teams were good enough. Like they could have done what Villanova did way back in the day and shoot 70% from the floor or something and get there, but those are fluky. So really, when you look at it, this talent took the extra step, and enough guys stuck around. Kispert's sticking around. I would never. I don't think anybody projected Corey Kispert as an NBA, starting guard when he first got here. Maybe even for the first couple of years. When Kelly Olynyk arrived, you're like, gifted big man, but not going to do it. And then look what he's done. So
he's had a fantastic career.
I've quit saying that they've reached, whatever pinnacle or whatever, because they just keep blowing the roof off the thing.
Love it.
Yeah.
Well, we wanted to maybe change up the gears a little bit. Mart has a special segment that we like to call the Drew Timmy spin cycle. So if you allow us a drop here real quick, we're gonna go a little rapid fire at you, if that's okay.
Timmy spins and finishes. Timmy. Shot fake. Timmy gets right around it. Look at that footwork.
Evan Mobley there on the spin to the miss. Another one for Drew Timmy. Timmy easily spins as he peels off the defense.
All right. So you are in the Drew Timmy spin cycle, Greg Heister. The idea is you respond to the questions as quickly as possible. No thinking.
Oh, God.
All right, Adam, go ahead.
Best hair in the trio. Best hair in the broadcasting team.
Oh, is that a question?
This is the first question.
Yeah.
Who's got the best hair?
This is the spin cycle.
There's no doubt, Heister.
I thought you were going to say Richard.
And it's not fake, right? Like,
No, we believe it.
Regardless of what Twitter says, like, it's not fake. And I've played along with that over the years. People will say, hey, wow, Heister's piece is looking good. And I always tweet out, yeah, it's the best investment I ever made.
Yeah.
But it's God-given.
I love that. Nice. Chris.
You're on death row because Richard made one too many comments and you lost it. You only get one meal. What are you eating?
Oh, probably a big cheeseburger.
Ooh.
Yeah,
From?
big cheeseburger.
From Delicious or where?
It doesn't matter, just so it's off the grill. A hot burger
Fair
off
enough.
the grill. Yeah.
You and Pargo getting a burger, I'm sure. He famously loved burgers. All right, you're doing great so far. Dogs or cats? If you have one.
No. I don't get the cat thing. I've never walked into a house.
You seem like a dog man.
Cat that lives there, and they do their business in the house. Like that's no.
So okay, so do you have a dog?
Yeah, well, yeah. There's a little French bulldog running around in here somewhere.
Oh,
Yeah.
love it.
That's
a good
good
one.
answer.
That's
That's fantastic.
We
Of
all
course
got
you have
dogs.
a bulldog. Of course he has a duh.
Duh.
Yeah, of course.
You and Mark Few are hanging out at the Seasons on the Fly Lodge. Who bags the most fish?
Oh, no, Heister. There's no doubt about that.
Okay.
That's his home. He's on home turf there.
Yeah,
Like,
that's
I'm
true.
Like,
Yeah.
Lake Quejack. It's her home turf.
And I usually put them in through the run first, and still get it done behind.
I'm sure he loves that. You're fly fishing. You can only take one album to listen to for the rest of time. What is it?
It's John Denver's greatest hits. Piece of cake.
Oh,
Excellent.
there we go.
Yeah,
Excellent.
piece of cake. In fact, honestly, it plays a lot in the truck on the way there. So that's my go-to.
Love it. Okay, what are you really bad at? You're really good at a lot of things, Greg, but what are you really bad at?
Yeah, well, geez. Oh, God. Oh, God. I'm probably really bad at basketball.
You don't know?
So what am I really bad? Oh my gosh, I can't think of anything right now. But there's got to be, there's all kinds of stuff. I'm probably, so clearly I'm not good at, like, I hate painting houses. I'm not good at shoveling snow. All of that stuff I find to be,
Okay.
Yeah.
Renaissance
manual labor
man.
around the house.
That's a terrible answer, but it's the best I got for you right now.
I one that's a segment I like to call Dan or Richard. Who's going to catch more fish on a fishing trip with you, Dan or Richard?
Well, Richard's taller. There's a huge advantage.
Oh, interesting.
Is that true?
Yeah, totally. And Dan is he's outdoor challenged. Let me just say that. Even though he lives way north of Spokane, out in the country. I'm not sure how equipped he is to handle the wilderness. But I think Richard's been out there a little bit.
I'm not a fisherman. Why does height help when you're fly fishing?
Well, you can see in the river.
You see into the water.
And you're higher, yeah. So especially with a fly, your fly rod, the rod is up off the water quicker. There's huge advantages to me. I'm 6'6", so yeah.
I don't think I would have guessed that.
Yeah, so I have an advantage, over Coach Few.
Yeah, who is not 6'6". He's more
close.
he's more my stature. He's closer to my stature for sure.
Okay, so NFC, AFC Championship picks this weekend. What do you got?
Oh my gosh, it's really tough, but I think Cincinnati's going to beat Kansas City.
Ooh.
And yes, and I think I'm going to go with Philly.
So one home team wins, one road team wins.
Yeah,
I'm
going to go with Philly. I just think Brock Purdy's going to run out of his freshman magic here, and Philly they just seem and Jalen Hurts can squat 600 pounds.
Oh.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine that.
I don't think I've squatted in the entire cumulatively in my life.
You're right.
It's pretty nutty. And Joe Burrow, I think he's going to prove to be the class of quarterbacks in the NFL. So, and they can run the ball. I think they're going to deny Patrick, 2 or 3 possessions in that game, and Cincinnati will score. Like they'll score points.
Chiefs have been playing a lot of close games. They've been playing with fire a little bit down the stretch in this season. So
we don't know any teams that play close games that end up paying for it at any point. So that's not.
No.
Kansas City gets off to slow starts too lately, right? And they just don't. And Cincinnati's Joe Burrow is my word, man.
He's a real deal.
He's quite good.
He is.
Dan, likely to make fun of you without being prodded. Obviously, there's some back and forth in the broadcast, and so occasionally you might lead it off.
Honestly, but that is an absolute tie because I think that they both set out to do that on any opportunity. And listen, as I told you guys earlier, my job is to be provocative. So I have no issues with going out on the limbs with opinions. And sometimes I say things just to get their goats or to get them aroused and to create a reaction. So I think they both take great pride in that, to be honest with you, like trying to get at me. So that's a total tie.
Have either of them actually ever offended you whether like let's say keep it on air because personal stuff is personal, but on air whether they've
Oh,
actually
yeah.
upset you
With
with a comment, give it,
the
taking banter
comment.
too far or something, or
and to be like probably Chris, but I don't. They would have been so rare that I don't remember. I don't. I remember one time I offended Dan, and I think because I kept calling him. I think it was Dan the Man, and he took offense to that
Really?
for some reason. And he did not. He did not like me calling, and I just kept calling what Dan. Remember, it was like the Jim Rome and Chris Everett.
Jim Everett
Yeah,
thing.
the whole like, don't call me Chrissy again. Okay, like it was one of those things where I thought he was kind of joking, but I think he did not like it. He seriously did not like it, and he kind of got upset with me.
Being 6'6", I'm guessing he didn't come after you the way.
No, and it's never like that. I'm too old and beyond my prime that way to be worried about that stuff. I'm more of a hugger these days, and so the last thing I would want to do is to make those guys that way. But we do have colorful debates. I've often told the three of us should be, we should have a radio show or something where we could talk about this stuff. It's just that I'm not sure.
Dare I
either one of
say
those
a
two are
podcast?
versed.
Oh my God, I'd listen to that.
Gosh, competing in this world now is
Nah.
really tough. But I'm not sure that neither one of those two guys are versed enough in other sports to really carry it. If we were just talking basketball all the time, but
Yeah.
You don't even need to talk about sports at all.
Yeah, sounds like that's
True.
irrelevant.
no, that's true. Yeah, we could be talking about a lot of stuff, but
I have a question. So on this show, we have a habit of, pulling things that you and Dan and Richard say, perhaps out of context, and then playing them back for laughs. Something we enjoy doing quite a bit. And in one of them, you referenced the great Larry Larson, and I don't know who that is.
yeah.
Who is Larry Larson?
So Larry's a friend of mine.
Ah,
Long
okay.
friend of mine, and he operates Wild Alaska Sport Fishing and Cruises up in Alaska. And it's crazy because I have a lot of friends that will be texting me during the game. Like, it's amazing how many people will be texting me.
It's like I'm working.
And literally,
Hello.
I'll be calling the game, looking at actions and texting people back. And so Larry was hitting me up so badly that day, I just couldn't answer all the texts. I would have been missing buckets. So I just kind of let him know on air that I was thinking about him and,
that's great.
and acknowledging the fact that he was texting me in my own way.
That was a classic moment. I believe then you followed it up. Dan was like, "Who's Larry Larson?" And you said, "This is." And by the way, this next line has become we're fanboying a little bit, but this has become part of our vernacular. Like when we're hanging out, we say, "Google it, Dan," which is what you told him. So if someone doesn't know something, we'll be like, "Oh, Google it, Google it, Dan."
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Yeah.